All right, so I've zoomed us into the deer here, and this one's going to be a challenge for me. Now, our taxidermy mount isn't necessarily as alive as I want it to be, and the photos that I've been able to pull out of my library are really helpful, and I was able to design this deer using those, kind of bringing all those together, but we're very much so pulling from a bunch of different photos, a bunch of different angles of lighting, just examples of lighting from various photos to sort of bring my deer that I have going on here, kind of just bring it to life. And it's going to be a challenge making sure that my oranges are in the right space, that I have the sunlight coming over its back correctly, that the spots that are shaded are where they're supposed to be, and the spots that are highlighted are also where they're supposed to be. So there's going to be a lot of trial and error, especially in the beginning of this. Now, what I want to do to get started is basically, I know we have this blocked in to a certain level here, but I'm going to go back over the top and really fine tune these tones. I'm not worried about detail. I'm not worried about specific hairs, speckles on the nose or the highlights in the eye. I'm really worried about making sure that I have the tones and the shadows and the highlights and the colors all in the correct place, and that they are the right contrast and the right level of color too. The saturation, we don't want to oversaturate some of these oranges too much, and I think some of these are way oversaturated for what they need to be in the finished deer. So we're really going to fine tune some of this. So all I'm going to do for about, well, I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's going to take a while. I've got a number 2 round brush. It's kind of a frayed tip. Again, it's just to get color on there. It's not to add any details. So just a nice medium size, small round brush. And I'm mixing some dark orange. Now, the shaded part of the brown hair is going to be kind of a dirty orange color, but there's not going to be a lot of color because that shaded portion of the deer just kind of washes that color away. Our color is really going to stand out on the highlights of the deer, but not necessarily the shadows. So I'm going to start with this just... Now I can see that that color I've just laid on is going to be too light. That color would probably be more suiting for an area through here, kind of the transition between the highlights and the shadows. So we want to go darker. And again, I want some of that brownish tone, but I don't need a lot, just a tad. And if I need more, I can glaze that over the top. So now that's more so what we're looking for. Now again, there's going to be a lot of hard lines, especially the outside of the deer. Very hard lines, stiff edges, and we're just going to really block in these colors. Just making sure that these browns are where they're supposed to be and the whites are where they're supposed to be, and adding a bit of color on top of that as well. Patch on the forehead probably can be a little lighter, so we're going to lighten that. Some browns added to the ear. Go ahead and just add more brown to that ear. Now I'm really going back and forth. I'm looking at a photo of this deer that I was given. I gotta fine tune this throat patch. Probably bring it up, get rid of that portion down there. Flatten out the bottom. just scrubbing on this color. The first step to creating really realistic hair, and exactly what I just said a few minutes ago, it's just getting the tones right and getting the contrast right. Once you have that, you're pretty much there. All you have to do to finish that up, to really take it to that level that you might be looking for, is just to add detail over the top. So if you have the tones right, you have the contrast right, and you have the color right, very simple from there. That's the hardest part. So now, might just add some white to this color we have. That's going to be pretty bright. Now that's a drastic change to what I've got going on, but I'm going to see what it looks like. If I want to add some more orange tones, well, I can add them over the top. Very simple to do. You can see how easy it is to change the color, just like that. And already, I can see that I like this more so than all that orange. I do like orange, but I do like the warm tones, the sun hitting it, but I'm just not sure how bright I want those warm colors to be. So this is just a great way to experiment. Maybe add some warm tones kind of right around the ear. Just dragging on that color. Not worried about detail. We just want to get it correct. Now, the white patch is a different story than the brown fur we're working on. We're going to want more blue because the white is going to reflect the blue sky that's up behind here. As that blue sky reflects its light off the face patch, that's going to appear blue in the shadow. So I'm kind of looking for some blue, adding some black to that. We're going to want it dark. We're going to want it toned back. We don't want that too vibrant. Some medium gray. See what that gray does. That's going to be, I think I want it darker. So just grab some darker paint. More gray. Now, the real tell of this is when I get this close to the brown, the darker gray brown that we laid down, that's going to be the telling tale. How do they compare? And I want that white patch to appear like it's white. So maybe I need to add some more white. Now you see I add that white and it goes right in there. That might be more so the tone that I'm looking for. First things first, just going to color it in. Not worried about detail, just fill in that whole area. That really shows how the detail is very unimportant at this point. Just making sure I get the general tone in the correct area and I get enough of it on there. I don't overdo it. Just a matter of playing with it. And that same gray tone can be scrubbed into the throat patch down here. And just filling stuff in. Very simple. You can always go back. We can change this back to any color in just a heartbeat. Adding some more kind of on this side of the chin. Not worried about that black, not worried about the nose. We know the nose is there, we're not going to lose it. Just coloring it in. Got the ear up here, it's kind of that same color. Get that on that white hair on the ear, a little bit on this ear as well. Don't know how shaded I want this ear to be, but I'm just playing with that for now. Now, it's easy to get caught up in one area. The best thing to do is just keep moving. Now we've worked on this, I'm going to keep moving. Just keep on moving. And then once I get to down here, the last bit of the deer, then I can step back, I can take a look at everything that I've done and really move to the next step, you know, with confidence. That's what I'm trying to say. And the antlers, I should say, I'm leaving the antlers right now because I'm not positive that the sky is how I want it to be yet. I'm not sure if I want to tweak some colors in the sky. So I'm going to leave the antlers right now and just work on finishing the deer so I can compare the deer to the sky. And then I'll really have a good idea after I get this first good layer of paint on the deer. So I'm just going to keep on poking. Black, some red, some orange, some white, fairly gray. Getting these tones right, just working at it. Scrubbing it in. I don't care about the direction of it. Just want that color to be right. So I'm going to keep poking at it just like this. You'll see me just start building up these colors, playing with it. And then when I finish with this layer, this initial layer, just continuing to block in these colors, talk about what I'll do next. All right, so this has been quite the long time coming thus far, but I'm finally happy with where we've got everything and just the shade of the shadows, just the tones in general, to me are looking like they're correct in regards to where our sun is going to be. I still haven't touched the antlers yet. I'm going to do the body before I go there, but right now, I think I'm ready to commit. And when you get to a point like this, you really do have to either decide to make a change now or you have to commit with what you have, because it's going to be really difficult to make changes beyond that. Not to mention, you're just going to waste a lot of time. If you get to a point, you add a bunch of details, and then once you change things, you're going to have to ruin those details. So it's really kind of the point right now when you have to make a decision, and I think I'm ready to do that. So what I'm going to do is just start picking away at this. Now, this is going to be the most tedious process of this entire painting. And you can see I'm mixing kind of some gray, and there's a hint of blue in this gray, and I'm just going to test it out. And that might be, I'm going to let that dry and just kind of see what that looks like, because it is going to dry a bit darker. That's pretty close. I might just touch some more black on my palette, mix that black in. That's probably about the color I want. That's pretty good though. And what we want to do is add texture to its entire body. That's going to be the first step. Now, I had gotten a little fine-tuned just because it's hard not to get fine-tuned around the face, but I'm good. I'm happy with the structure of the face, the bone structure. I think everything looks good. It's just a matter of really cleaning it up at this point and focusing in on that. But when it comes to the body, we're just going to add texture. And the first thing I'm going to do is add some lighter tones. Now, man, I don't know if that might be, I like to go really subtle. I just added a bit more black to that color. That's a little better. So, this is it. I'm going to go up and down the entire body. And I'm going to maintain, the biggest part of this is making sure that you're going in the direction of the hairs. You want to make sure that your hair direction is correct, but really, it's all these little spots, just these little specks. That's all it is, little specks. I'm going to do a little portion here just to let you see that. But there's nothing special about this. You can blend some of these specks together. You can space them out a little more in other areas. But I'm just going to focus on building those spots all over. And they're a bit elongated. They're not necessarily round. They're more of a rectangle shape. And so you can see by just adding that texture right over the top, that's it. That's all it is. Now that we have our darker tone underneath, Now that we add this lighter texture, those darker tones are going to show through and kind of provide those darker textures automatically for us. So it kind of saves some time rather than trying to paint the dark and light textures. I decided to go a bit dark on the shade of the deer, and now when I go back over the top, those darker tones just sneak on right through. And we've got some pretty cool looking deer hair. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. But it takes a ton of patience, because as you can see, you can't go very fast. Now, when we get to some areas, we can add darker tones if we want to. That's no problem. But we're going to get it pretty close by doing it this way. And we will have to make adjustments. That won't be bad. And if I want to make an adjustment, I'll just take some darker black and carefully go in between and try to break up some of those tones. You almost can't see that. And then if I want, say, some more highlights in the shadowed area, I can take some brighter tone. You see that brighter tone start to go right over the top? We just layer another layer of these small hairlines, and I can achieve some subtle highlights within the shadows. Now I'm going to keep going, and then when I find a good spot, to slow it down and maybe give you some more good advice, I'll do that. But for right now, I'm going to be at this quite a while doing just this. And I'm going to coat the entire body. And when we get into the leg, our hairs are going to be going more downward. And then when we get into the body, the belly, it's going to be more kind of sweeping back this direction. And then of course when we get to the rear, it's going to start curving down. And then even when we get down here, it might start curving back a little more and then back over the top like this. And so we're just going to try to follow that direction of those hairs and the direction of those hairs and just build this texture. So now that I've got this first initial layer of detail, and that's looking pretty cool, but now it's starting to lack contrast. That really started to overpower, and we still got some darks in there, but I think I want to start breaking this up even more so with some more darks. I'm going to start going in between all of these marks we just laid down with some black, some white. There's a tad bit of orange in that as well. And that should be dark enough right there. So you can see that starts to pop up pretty good. Now, deer fur, I think any fur, it's very easy if you think about how a fur or a hide could be altered in any way. You could run your fingers through the hair and you could change the appearance of it. So it never has to be exact. As long as you got things pretty close. If you make, I could have a spot, say right here. Just a dark spot. And now that dark spot, maybe I'll turn that into a part of the hair that's just kind of fluffed out. And we'll have some imperfections throughout the body, and that'll actually give it some realism. So I'm never too stressed about what happens on a micro scale when I'm working on something like deer fur. But that goes with a lot of different animals. So I'm going to continue the process of just going back and forth, and this is the same type of technique that I instilled when I was doing the grasses. I'm not focused on one area. As I begin to add these darks, I'm not going to just add darks in one area and work my way across like I did with this initial layer. I'm going to bounce all around and build it up kind of all continuously at the same time so that I have a good idea of how much dark I want, because it's going to be really easy to add too much dark. So I'm going to be very careful about what I'm laying down with this dark, because I don't want to ruin the texture I've laid down, and I don't want to waste any time either. So I'm just going to start poking at different areas. Especially in the light, we're going to have some darker textures as it fades into that orange. That's really all there is to it. Now you're going to watch this really, I think, come together as I add the second layer of texture, and then I may even add a third layer of texture, but it's hard to say at this point. It'll really start to get good once this all comes together. So I'm just going to keep plugging away just like this, and we'll see how it goes. So as I'm adding more black, I can tell that I'm going to want some more highlights back in those shadows. It's just becoming a little flat, and I think I can pull out some more depth in this deer by just brightening up some areas. See how this looks. You can see that just might go on just a touch brighter. Probably add some more white to the mixture. There. And you'll probably see me just bounce around with some highlights as well. And this is just going to be a process of going back and forth until I find that right combination. So that's something I wanted to share. If you weren't wondering what I was doing as I'm going back to the highlights, because I know I said I'm still going to be working on some of the shadows, but I think I have to adjust some highlights too. Just especially you can see right through here. This is a good example. The thigh and the rump right through here. If we go right in the center of it, and we add some of these highlights I'm talking about, we're going to make that rump look more round, more three-dimensional. Got to have the highlights to some degree. And, you know, how bright we're going to make them just depends on how I feel kind of as a whole as I keep getting closer and closer to completing this. So you can see that starts to create a little bit of three-dimensional effect, and we could do the same probably right through here. There's just going to be need to be some more details. The back of the leg is going to have kind of some white hair, just like that. And those skin rolls, you know, we could go right over the top with one of those skin rolls, and I could brighten that and just make it pop out at you. Just like that. You can see how those pop out more. Just takes time. Perfect. Okay, now you've seen me start to add some more of these oranges, kind of brightening up some of the highlights. I'm starting to think about how I'm going to finish up this deer. And it really comes down to just personal preference. I think it comes down to personal preference, just how you want to finish this out. But man, I'm real close, and I think I could be happy with this. I think I could finish it right now, not do a single thing else. It's just hard to quit. So as I wrap this up, just kind of think about some final thoughts on this. This is really just texture. If you zoom in on a micro scale, it is just white, gray, black, and orange textures, just speckled textures. It's almost like pixelated art. Deer fur is very pixelated, but if we were going to do longer fur, we just would have to extend those pixels, just make them longer. It's the same process for any fur, and I did that a little bit back here where I started to elongate some of those brush strokes because the fur around the rump does get a bit longer, especially in the area around the white. It just has a different pattern, and that pattern is more elongated. This pattern here is more speckled. But one thing I can see right now is I think it'd be cool to add a reflection in the eye, just some white on a liner brush. It is that easy. Oh, there we go. And of course, add some highlight around the ear. Then I could take some orange, kind of go right on the inside of that highlight where it meets the black. Add some orange. So I got some highlight on the ear. And the next thing I'm going to have to do is I still have to work at those antlers, but I'm still waiting on just wrapping up the picture in general before I finalize with kind of that final touch, which will be the antlers. I just don't want to get ahead of myself and then have to repaint the sky because I didn't like it. But man, I think we're really close to the finished deer. There's going to be a few things that I have to work on. I did adjust some of the edges. I brought in his brisket, and I'm going to have to clean up some of that background around here. And I also did that a bit right here on the outside of the neck, and I lowered the rump down. So it's just cleaning up kind of around the deer, but the deer itself, I think it's close. And the only other thing I can see that I might have to work on adding some more texture to is just the legs, the lower legs. I kind of neglected that part. But the more small details, and this is what just takes patience, the more small details, the better. So if I take some white and I pixelate a couple spots, look at that. Real simple, but a big difference. Makes a big difference. A couple more highlights right there underneath on the chin. Look how that just brings that chin out. Just buff the eye in a little more, blend that in. Real simple stuff. It's going to be a matter of just having some extra patience again and kind of finish it to my personal preference. All right, well, thank you so much for watching this demonstration on deer fur. Remember, if you had any questions, please be sure to leave them in the comments. I will be happy to join the discussion. And of course, if you'd like to support my channel, please check out my free print giveaway, as well as my eBay auctions and website where you can find other prints and originals. Those links are both in the description below. Until next time, happy painting, everybody. Please subscribe to my channel for more great content to come. We'll see you next time on another episode of Paint Like a Pro.